What's up, guys? Ben here bringing you another video today. It is time for our champs predictions. Matches start on Thursday in Las Vegas. We got 8 teams remaining of the 12 in the CDL. Let's see which team will go ahead and get their ring for this season. Let's start off with the top side of winners. First off, we got Atlanta FaZe versus Seattle Surge, and this could not be a better example, like two teams heading in an opposite direction. FaZe coming off of winners finals at Major 5 in Seattle. Well, it's been a rough go for Seattle last a couple of weeks. They've only won one series at the entire length of Stage 5, and it was against Boston. And really, since then, I mean, they've only been like LAG. They beat FaZe back in the Major 4 qualifiers. Then they lost to FaZe at Major 4. So I don't really know what to think of this matchup for Seattle. I don't think they've beaten FaZe. The only time they beat FaZe on LAN this year was at Major 1. I think FaZe pretty much got their numbers. So thinking about like map pools and matchups, I think I can see Seattle taking like one map, but I just don't see them forcing it 5. I just think the Mac and Lamar combination is just not going to be strong enough against FaZe. And I think they're going to cruise in this one and take it 3-1. All right, and now we move to a matchup that I think on paper should favor Toronto, but it's champs, you never know. So we got Toronto Ultra versus LA Thieves. Toronto is 4-1 against Thieves this season. Thieves have only won 5 maps in 5 matches against Toronto. They played the major and Toronto smoked them. They played the major qualifier. Toronto beat them. So they've played Toronto twice in the last like month or so. In regards to this matchup, I really want to pick Thieves going in this event. I really do. I just think the problem in this series for Thieves is that they end up playing a lot of hotel and they just don't match up well against Toronto on that map. I think they've tried like Embassy, that hasn't worked. CDL Control. I just find the path really hard for Thieves. So I'm going to also spot it at 3-1. I really want to say this is going to go 5. Let's do it. Let's actually say it's going to go 5, but I think Toronto will clutch up with the game 5 ice, and then Thieves will have to start things in the losers bracket. All right, let's do the top side of winners. We're actually going to finish up winners bracket to like winners finals, I guess. But let's go to OPTIC in Boston. OPTIC obviously had a, well, not a great Major 5, considering that they were great online and then got 6-0 at LAN. So that's not ideal. And Boston, well, you know, the usual thing with Boston, man. Online, cruising, they get to LAN, and they're just not ready for prime time. They've made a big change going into this event. They brought in Snoopy. I don't know what to think of that change. They're throwing this guy into like the deep end this season. So that's wild. They really struggled against OPTIC almost all season. I will say that I think Boston may steal a map in this series, but I think OPTIC cruise for the most part. It may even be a 3-0. I just don't have enough balls to really call it 3-0 here, but I just feel adding Snoopy here is not really going to change the equation, and OPTIC will get things going. Which I think is the second to final match on Thursday. And then our last winners round 1 matchup, New York versus Minnesota Rocker. Taking a look at stats this season in regards to this matchup, New York is 5-1 against Rocker. They recently played at the Major. New York 3-0'd them. Prior to that, they played at Major 4, and New York beat them 3-1. Obviously, with a slightly different team. I think that this is just a poor matchup for Minnesota, but I do think it's going to go game 5, and I think New York's going to clutch up. I think this one could be kind of exciting, but I just think New York will get it done. We'll go with the record on that. All right, this leaves us with 2 really good winners round 2 matchups. We'll kind of let these play out here. We got FaZe versus Toronto, and I think I'm going to take FaZe in this one. They've played a couple of times this year on LAN, and FaZe has pretty much had Toronto's number in the series. 5-2 record against them. 10-3 in hardpoint, I think, is really interesting. And they played recently at the Major 5 major, and it wasn't a close series. So I'll give Toronto like 1 map, maybe a control. I think FaZe win this one and cruise on over to the winners final. And then we got OPTIC versus New York. I don't really know how to call this one. New York at times has struggled with OPTIC this season. That was during the Major 4 qualifiers. Is 2 of the 3 times they played. I don't know. I think maybe they could won like 1 map in both those. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, they won 1 map online against OPTIC and they got 3-0 to Major 4. They did beat OPTIC during the Major 3 qualifier with this new team. I think that New York's got a decent matchup in here because I think they're the better control team. And I think their search has been improved. If Paco has won those series, they're clutching up in search and they look great in Tommy's 10K search tournament, some of the New York guys. I have New York taking this one last map against OPTIC and making it onto the winners finals. And unfortunately for OPTIC, they get bounced to losers bracket. I think this is going to be a really like epic. And I think that this series on paper with the playmaking potential is the opportunity to maybe be like the series of the year. I'm calling it now. If it happens, this matchup series of the year if we get there. All right, let's scroll down the losers and then we'll kind of play out for most of Saturday. So Seattle versus LA Thieves. And I got to be honest, for Seattle, this is probably like a really tough draw. Either of the draws are going to be really tough for them. I'm trying to think of the last time these two teams played. I'm actually going to look at it right now. It was Major 4 qualifiers and Thieves beat them. Thieves then beat them in the Major 3 qualifiers. And they had played before that online at Major, or rather at Major 1, and Surge beat Thieves. So not a lot of playtime versus these teams. So there's not a lot really to go on in recent memory with these squads. Thieves did beat Seattle on all the S&Ds that they played. And I can see that being a factor in this series. I'm going to say 3-1, and this Seattle team that I think is on its last legs will just go out quietly on Friday afternoon and hit the blackjack table. And then we scroll down. We got Boston versus the Minnesota Rocker. There's a lot of bad blood in this matchup. This one could be really fun. Rocker obviously played Boston at LAN, at the home series, and Boston beat them 3-1. And then they also then played again at Major 5, and Rocker beat them in game 5. So there's a lot of like twists and turns this one. I just don't like Boston's ice. I just don't like their sort of everything they have. I think this can go to game 5. I just think the lack of experience in Boston is going to hurt them in this situation. Rocker is just going to kind of grind this gritty series out and advance to fight another day on the weekend. But I just think for Boston, this is looking like dead last, man. I just think this team lacks the experience of some of the more experienced squads. All right, let's keep the losers bracket going. We got OPTIC Texas versus LA Thieves. Oh man, one of these teams is getting top 6 and absolutely imploding their team like after this event on Saturday afternoon. Oh, that's absolutely crazy. So Thieves have won the last 2 matchups, actually the last 3 matchups against OPTIC, and I just think they're going to have a lot of confidence in this series. I really want to pick OPTIC in this series, but they have not had a great time against Thieves, and I feel like Thieves' control is going to kind of see them through this. And I'm actually not even going to give this to a game 5. I think Thieves kind of run with this and they take out OPTIC before we get to 4. And then top 6 for OPTIC is going to cause a lot of changes for a team that had a lot of what ifs this season. All right, next up we have Toronto versus Minnesota, the Battle of the North at Champs. One of these teams is getting top 6. One of them is moving on. Absolute fun matchup for us to get in this situation. Weirdly enough, Rockers actually kind of won the edge on this series. They haven't played a lot. They played the Major 5 qualifiers and Rocker beat them in a game 5. But I'm trying to look at they played on LAN. Toronto played them on LAN and beat them at Major 1. And then I think there's got to be one other time, surely, right? They got to play during the qualifiers at some point. Yeah, the first match of the qualifiers, Rocker beat them. Like, okay, sure. Other than that, Toronto's kind of run this. I think Toronto is going to actually 3-0 this. There's just not a lot of firepower for Rocker to deal with Toronto. This would be a big upset if Toronto losing at top 6, but I think they're going to grind this out and make it to top 4. All right, let's go back up top. We got FaZe versus New York. We did just recently see this matchup between these two squads, and New York took it in a game 7, winning 3 searches. I just don't see it again. Both these teams have always played close series so far this season, but I think FaZe clutch up game 5 and make it to the grand finals. It should be a fun one. I think New York has improved, and I think a lot of people probably maybe thinking upset for New York, but I just feel like they're going to carry the momentum from the last event. This team looks really good at Respawn, and I think have a very good opportunity to probably make it to the grand final. But let's see what happens on the loser side. All right, we got Thieves, Toronto, New York. Only one of these teams is making it to the grand final. First off, Thieves versus Toronto. One of these teams is going home, and we're getting the rematch, as you see from earlier in the tournament, Toronto versus Thieves. You know what I'm going to actually do in this one is I am going to bank on the Thieves losers bracket run, baby, in Vegas, probably in front of like Nate Shot and Courage. These guys are going to keep it moving. Seattle, OPTIC, Toronto get top 4, and Thieves move on to face New York. And so this is a fun one. I think New York and Thieves haven't played each other quite a bit this season. So looking up, they played during the Major 5 qualifiers. New York beat them last map. Obviously, that was online. They played at Major 2 and Thieves beat them. And then New York beat them during the Major 2 qualifiers. So they really haven't played on LAN in quite a bit here. My worry for Thieves in this is just, I think New York are going to pose an interesting threat in regards to S&D for Thieves, which I think is sort of their weakness. But I am going to bank on another Thieves absolute gritty game 5 close out. New York go ahead and they get third this event, and Thieves make the loser round 1, matchup, giving us FaZe and Thieves in the grand finals. This is a fun one. So we have a best of 9. It's going to be a slightly different format from what we've seen all season in regards to sort of how things are going to work out with the vetoes and sort of the series. I'm a little surprised they did the best of 9 thing, but you know, it is what it is. I just think that FaZe probably have the sort of deeper map pool right now. And I think that they probably win this. We're going to say that we get to an 8th map. I'm going to give Thieves a couple of maps here. And FaZe will go ahead and walk away with their 2nd title in 4 years, for Simpin and Beezy, 3rd title in 5 years. I feel like they're just the team that's in best form right now. I would say about my bracket prediction here, I really like it. Before I was recording this video, I didn't really think about sort of how this is going to go down, and I think I'm a little crazy for picking the Thieves like kind of loser bracket 1 for the L, but I do think if any team can pull it off, it's them and kind of find their form in events. And when they get on form, it could be dangerous. Now, that being said, like I could definitely see them losing to OPTIC or Toronto, and things get wild here. But I do think that FaZe right now, the only team against FaZe that I'd be a little sketched about is probably OPTIC. They make a run here. Everybody else, I just think that they're right now the team in best form, and I feel pretty comfortable picking them as your CDL champions this year. All right, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like if you enjoyed. Coming up on Wednesday, we're going to go ahead and show our breaking point team. So if you haven't done that already, make sure you get it in, but I'll show you my team on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we'll have a Q&A video. And then Friday, actually, I think we're going to do a little bit of a like off-season preview for the 2 teams we haven't talked about yet that haven't qualified, which I believe are Florida and Vegas. So we'll talk about that at the end of the week. But I appreciate y'all tuning in as always, guys. We will see you on the next video.